Hi guys, welcome back to another tech video. In this video, we will talk about the dark web. And like I always say, if you're new here and haven't followed this Facebook page or subscribed to our YouTube channel, don't forget to tap the follow button on Facebook and or the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to see more MCPL content. We bring you interesting tech videos every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And don't worry, if you're so eager to learn and forget to do these things right now, I'll remind you at the end of the video. In this video, we want to answer the following questions. What is the dark web? How does it work? And what is the Tor browser? So moving on. As a disclaimer, even though there are 4 levels of the dark web, I won't even go beyond the search engine, nor do I suggest that you do so either. I'm pretty sure I can't go further than that without getting fired for violating our acceptable use policy, even for demonstration purposes, and we don't want that. So, I'm sorry if this wasn't the thrilling, suspenseful video that you were hoping for, like in the movies, now that I've said that. Anyway, if you're curious about the dark web and what it looks like beyond what I'll show you here today, you can find individuals on YouTube that have documented their adventures through the levels of the dark net. Viewer discretion is highly advised. You're all adults who can make your own decisions, so decide to watch someone else make those mistakes. Got it? Good. Now that the housekeeping is out of the way, let's get into it. A part of the looming dangers of the internet seem to stem from the mysterious unknown of the dark web. Consider the perceptions that you have of it right now. It's not a stretch to say that movies, books, news, TV, and other consumable media sources present the dark web as a nefarious, illicit, and inappropriate hotbed of illegal activity, where illegal items such as credit card numbers, drugs, cell phones, PayPal accounts, fake IDs, passports, visas, and a plethora of other forbidden objects are for sale. This is not an activity that we consider to be part of Al Gore's internet, but here we are. Now that's some of it, but that's not all of it. There are different levels of internet access, each one unique regarding privacy and levels of encryption, with the dark web affording more privacy and anonymity and more layers of encryption than the clear web and deep web. So let's talk about them. What are the levels of the internet and what can you do to access each level? Now, most of us have seen this image floating around on the internet of this deep web iceberg diagram, where this floating, titanic, murdering, overgrown icicle is divided into 3 parts: the surface, deep, and dark web, with the dark web at the bottom, where those like sea monsters and fish with teeth live. So on the surface, we have the things that you've heard of, such as blogs, Facebook, Google, Wikipedia, YouTube, and the like. Pretty much all of your .com, .net, .org websites that you don't need a special browser to access. The surface web, or ClearNet as it's also called, makes up of about 5% of the total content available on the internet. And between the surface web and the dark web is the deep web. To understand the dark web, it's important to know that it is not the same as the deep web. It can be easy to confuse the two since they sound as if they're the same thing. Now, both the dark web and the deep web are parts of the internet that are not indexed by search engines, but that's where the similarities end. So let's think of the deep web as the gatekeeper of private information. Essentially, secure websites keep your info off the search engine results pages. If you Google your name, you won't find an email you sent yesterday because your email provider keeps that information behind layers of security. If you tried searching Google for your medical records, you wouldn't find them, as your healthcare provider stores that information in private databases. You'd have to log in to access those. So same with your banking information, legal documents, scientific and academic databases, what's in your Amazon cart, what's on your wish list. The key here is that content living in the deep web is hidden behind firewalls. So password protected personal accounts, business intranets, certain parts of paid prescriptions, so like streaming content websites, user databases, these are all parts of the deep web that you can access with a standard browser. So moving on. At the bottom of the iceberg, we have the dark web. So back in 2001, a research paper for the Journal of Electronic Publishing, I will link it in the comments. It is extremely long. To summarize, they postulated that the deep web is currently 400 to 550 times larger than the commonly defined World Wide Web. The deep web contains 7,500 terabytes of information compared to 19 terabytes of information in the surface web. And apparently, the dark web is only 0.01% of that. Therefore, around 95 to 99% of your easily accessible internet is surface and deep web. So rest assured, you won't accidentally stumble upon the dark web. Accessing the dark web requires the use of a specialized browser called the Tor browser, which was created specifically and explicitly for protecting the privacy of dark web users. So we'll talk about Tor in a minute, but first let's talk about the dark web and who accesses it. For what it's worth, the dark web isn't dark because it's bad. Think of dark as in off the radar. Dark web users don't always match up with the image of who we would assume use the dark web. Most of the time we may picture some moody Mr. Robot character in a hoodie in a poorly lit room buying stolen identities and PayPal accounts by the pound. So some dark web users are common internet users like you and I that want a secure place to communicate, a place to share information, or to stay informed about the world. This is especially true if these users live in a country that heavily censors and restricts internet access. It may sound contradictory for there to be a good use for the dark web, but there is. That's what it was originally created for, a private pocket of the internet for unrestricted access to information, secure data transmissions, and an unfettered means for communication. Now don't get me wrong. Yes, 57% of dark web activity is illicit, and yes, the dark web can live up to its reputation. Yes, some users use the inherent anonymity that's built into the dark web for their advantage. That can happen with just about anything. However, the dark web can surprise us with its usefulness. For example, whistleblowers may utilize the dark web to reveal grievances within an organization or company. The politically outspoken can attempt to call attention to injustices perpetuated by their government. Or some users just want to find ways to get content that's blocked by their government. So for example, some countries utilize internet censorship, banning access to news outlets, social media sites, certain search engines, streaming services, email providers, messaging apps, and so on. Consider how you would access this content right now if you couldn't open your favorite browser, open Facebook or YouTube, access this specific page, and watch this video. I'm pretty sure just me talking about the dark web and passing on this information to other people could get this video blocked in an internet-restricted country. So to access banned content, be it for knowledge or entertainment, users can stay connected with the world with the help of the dark web. So how do they do this? Well, there are a few ways, but the most popular way is with the Tor browser. Understanding how the Tor browser works is important, even if you're not going to use it to access the dark web. First, to understand how these things work, we're going to define some things that you may hear quite a bit when you're learning and researching about Tor, the dark web, private browsing, and staying private on the internet. We'll figure out how these things interact with one another, so I'll provide some examples along the way. Now, bear with me, it will make sense in the end. I half promise. So, the Tor browser relies on a few key internet processes to work. So there's onion routing, nodes, and relays. To start, onion routing is the technique originally created by the U.S. Navy in the mid-1990s for anonymous communication over a computer network. Onion router refers to software that's being run, so in our case the Tor browser, that will redirect traffic via a router to a network of servers, which helps the user avoid being tracked or traced while online. The Tor browser is pretty much like a travel agent, so it's helping you get to your destination by making the necessary arrangements to protect your identity and internet activity. So this works by directing traffic out of your country of origin using servers in different countries as pathways to send information through. So this information could be a user accessing a website that's blocked in their country, you're accessing a dark web market that's considered socially unacceptable to purchase socially unacceptable items, or You're anonymously uploading important information to a news outlet's secure drop, so etc. So these computers that are part of the Onion network are called nodes. A node is an active physical electronic device attached to a network. These devices are capable of either sending, receiving, or forwarding information, sometimes a combination of the three. Now, these nodes are essentially normal computers connected to the internet that are used as jumping off points for Tor users. So it's pretty much like asking your friend to ask their neighbor to go to their grandma's house to look up something for you on her computer. So calling in to your friend to connect you with the neighbor who used their grandma's computer increases the degrees of separation between the internet activity and you, even though you were the one needing the information. So instead of doing the search yourself, asking someone in a different location to do this for you is called a relay, which is the act of taking information and passing it to another location. So think of relays like Olympic events, with the forerunners passing the baton at different intervals during the race. The nodes pass the information along just like the runners do with the baton, moving the information from one place to another on the Onion circuit. And now that I say that, all I can think of is a bunch of Olympians running with giant onions. And now I hope that you share in that thought as well. You're welcome. So, moving on. Tor chooses nodes in different area codes with different IP addresses to hide yours. Tor uses at least 3 nodes as relays to create a twisted path to tunnel your internet traffic, meaning your internet activity will jump from one node in one location or country to the next in another location or country, and maybe to the next until that information reaches its destination. So, okay, how does all of that work with the dark web and staying private on the internet? In an Onion network, messages are encapsulated in layers of encryption, analogous to the layers of an onion. So that whole time you were traveling through the internet, information about who you are, where you are, and where you're going was hidden in some combination from each node that you encounter. So for example, the encrypted data, so where you are, what you're accessing, and from where, is transmitted through a series of network nodes, each of which that peels away a single layer, uncovering the data's next destination. You're using the dark web, you want your existence on the internet to be virtually untraceable, and it almost is. Now, I say that because there are exceptions to every rule, as law enforcement, government agencies, private entities, and the like can still find a way to figure out who you are, even if you are using a specialized browser and other temporary services. You cannot truly stay off the radar if you're going to use Tor or even a VPN for inappropriate reasons. So keep that in mind. Mom rant done. Of the 3 nodes that escort you along your journey to the website that you're trying to get to, the entry node, which is known as the guard, is the only one that knows your IP address, but it doesn't know where you're going. It just moves you along to the next node, which is called the middle node. All middle nodes, you can have more than one, all they know is which node to move you to and which one you came from. So if the guard moves you to node 7 only knows that you came from the guard and that it needs to move you to node 3. That's it. So exit nodes, they complete the Tor circuit, as it's the one that sends your traffic to its destination. It's also the IP address that's visible to the destination. So up until this point, all of your traffic was hidden. Only the guard knows who you are. The middle nodes know absolutely nothing. And all of the exit relay knows is where it's ended up, but not who brought it here. So if you're accessing, for instance, the Washington Post, which we'll do an example of later, and you're an exit relay, the Washington Post sees the IP address of the exit relay, not the IP address that you are using as the user, as the client. So this privacy to access any website you want without sacrificing your identity is the main draw for using a Tor browser to access the dark web. However, the price of anonymity and privacy is often paid for with poor connection speed. Hopping through all of these relays and going from node to node can make connecting to sites take quite a while if they load at all. So luckily, Oh, none of us are willing to sacrifice our time to look at some skeevy web pages straight out of the 90s. So hashtag stay cool, hashtag never change. What we are willing to do is use the Tor browser to check out a real Tor circuit, an onion version of a search engine, and some features unique to the Tor browser and its web pages. So let's do it. So if you are ready to access the Tor browser, so you're willing to take the plunge, you've done all your research, and you're ready to get to it, you'll access torproject.org, which you'll see here in my URL. And then I would highly, highly, highly suggest that you go through each of the headers here and look at the information that they give you. They're extremely thorough with making sure that users that are new to onion routing have an idea of what it is, how it works, what the risks are, what the benefits are. It's fantastic. So after you've done all of that, you'll click download Tor browser. And then depending on which operating system you're using determines obviously which one you'll choose to start the download process. But if you kind of want to get an idea of what'll happen, you can check out the Tor browser manual in order to give you kind of like, hey, this is going to happen, then you'll click here, then you'll do this, then you'll do that, then this will show up. It's awesome. You'll definitely want to check that out. So I'm going to choose which one I'm on. I'm going to download it. I'm going to open it up and run the installer. Now this installation process will either be as slow or as fast as your computer can handle. But it's pretty easy. It's just the same as downloading an app from the App Store, except you're doing it from the internet, and you'll definitely want to be cautious of what you download from the internet and make sure that you aren't sacrificing any of your security features and changing any firewall settings in order to get something. So we're going to close that, and we're going to go to applications. So my computer's like, hey, this is something that's from the internet. Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. So I'll go open. Now, the first time that the Tor browser starts, you'll get a window that allows you to modify some settings if necessary. You might have to come back and change some things, but you can go ahead and just try and connecting when you get here if you want to do that. But you'll notice that this particular browser is pretty much Mozilla Firefox. So it's a Tor version of Mozilla Firefox. So you'll see we've got our back and forward arrows, our refresh, our Tor browser flag here, the search bar, and address bar. We're offline because we haven't connected yet. But there's the star, our security shield, new identity, and then the little open menu to get to the settings. You can also check to always connect automatically once you launch the browser if you want to, or you can go to Tor network settings or connect. So these are the options that you have available here. If you check out the network settings, it'll literally take you to the settings for the browser. And then there's also the quick start, so what you want it to do when it starts up. And then bridges. This will help you access the Tor network in places where Tor is blocked. Bridges are nodes that are not listed in the public directory that you can look up on the Tor website. Now here under privacy and security, you can check the cookies and site data, your logins and passwords, Onion services authentication. So this will have it to where you have to identify yourself. Do you want it to do that or not? And then here in search, we have that your default search engine in the address bar and search bar right now is DuckDuckGo. So that's kind of the default search engine for the Tor browser. You can switch it back to other ones, but I'm going to choose DuckDuckGo Onion. You can choose whichever search engine you're comfortable with. So back in that left panel, we have the home tab, so we can choose what happens on that home page when we first open the browser. And then we have the general section, which will have startup information tabs, and as well as language and appearance options that you can choose from. So once you're done playing with all of that, you can return back to the home tab and connect. Now, the first time it starts, it might take a little while. We're just going to go ahead and click connect while it establishes a connection. Within a minute or two, you'll be able to get it open. So you see the loading bar going across the top of the screen. And then you'll be here at the welcome screen. So what you can do is a couple things. There is a tutorial in the upper left-hand corner that says new to Tor browser. Let's get started. You can click on that, and it'll walk you through the tutorial of how the Tor circuit works and how they allow you to browse privately online. It walks through each of these categories here to give you tips. You can even click directly on some of them if you want to get some information, but it'll open up a new tab to take you where you want to go. And depending on what site you're on, you might get a little alert that says that there's an Onion service available. So this says that there's a more private and secure version of this site available on the Tor network via Onion services. And Onion services help website publishers and their visitors defeat surveillance and censorship. So what this means is that there's a surface web version of some websites as well as an Onion version. So for example, let's go here, and we're going to go to Onion services, and there's a what does .onion available mean in my browser, and this kind of gives you an idea of what that is. So that's why I mentioned before that utilizing the Tor project website as you get used to using a Tor browser would be very helpful to you if you want to do it that way. So that's the tutorial. I'll go ahead and close that tab since that's part of that. But there's a welcome, privacy, Tor network, which will talk to you about how the nodes and relays work. So you can adjust your Tor network settings from here to help it get a little bit used to how you want to browse the internet at first. So if you want to change your security levels, you can do that. But keep in mind, you're using a Tor browser, and if you change security levels within the website, some web pages may not load correctly or at all. So keep that in mind. And then we'll talk about the circuit display when we get there, which will let you know which relays you're using. Then there's a security option that'll let you choose your experience. And then it's letting you know, hey, some things are going to be different than when you're using a regular browser. And this says some things may be slower, and depending on your security level, some elements may not work or load. So keep that in mind. There's also the See FAQs option here that will take you to the FAQ page. And then, like we just saw a second ago, these are the tutorial mentions Onion services. So it does let you have the option of visiting an Onion search engine. So we will click on that to get there. And you see it's taking just a second to load. It's not terribly slow, actually. It's faster than I thought it would be. All right, so now that we've made it to this dark web search engine, let's check out a few things. If you look in the address bar here, this is kind of interesting. I didn't know that this is kind of how some things were titled in the dark web. So when it comes to Onion services that you find on the web, the dark web sites also use a scrambled naming structure that creates URLs that are often impossible to remember. So the address of an onion service is automatically generated, so the operators do not need to purchase a domain name. So instead of this saying duckduckgo.com, this says duckduckgogg42, so on and so forth, .onion. So the onion URL also helps Tor ensure that it's connecting to the right location and that the connection is not being tampered with. So that's why it has this mix of letters and numbers with .onion at the end. So just like any other website, you'll need to know the address of an onion service to connect to it. An onion address is usually like a string of 56 mostly random letters and numbers, followed by .onion. And then, so browsers with the appropriate proxy can access these sites, but others can't. So if I was in a different browser, for instance, let's copy this, show you what this means. I'll minimize this, and let's try Safari. And if I paste it and go, it's like, what? You're not connected to the internet. But if I just type in DuckDuckGo, it'll take me to the surface web version of DuckDuckGo. So you'll see that the URL says .com at the end. So back to Tor. Okay, so that's the URL there. A very long string of numbers and letters. So when you're accessing a dark website, the Tor browser will show in the URL bar an icon of an onion here. You'll see it there, displaying the state of your connection. So this says that my connection's secure. And then you'll see right below that is the circuit display. So this is where those nodes and relays come in. So right now I'm accessing this browser. My guard, which is protecting my IP address from the other nodes and relays, is located in Germany. And then the first node that it's accessing is located in Poland, and then it came back to the United States. And then there may be a few more relays in between then in order to get me to this search engine. Now, if I wanted a new circuit to change everything from like Poland down until the destination, I can click on new circuit for this site if I wanted to do that, but my guard's most likely not going to change. So if I do new circuit to get me some new nodes and relays, now my guard's in France, United States, Germany, and then relay. So that's how you can see where you're connected and who your guard is and who your exit relay is. Most of the time, these other three things will have countries. So I had a website I just tried to get to by using the onion URL for it. And so I came and put it in the search address because I wanted to show you this website that I saw. It's about science research papers. And it decided to take 15,000 years. So I finally got smart and was like, oh, I should just search for it since I know what it's called, instead of going directly there because there's an issue with URLs of a certain level. So this particular onion site is called Sci-Hub. So it says removing barriers in the way of science. And I'm like, oh, yeah, all about science here, friends. So I realized that I did all this work to get to this site, and it's a workaround for research papers that are usually behind subscription services or paywalls or something of the sort. And I was like, nah, that can't quite be true. And I had to look up how to use this anyway because I was like, I don't know what a DOI is. And so like I did a sample search and I was like, oh no, you're bad. But that's what that looks like. That's really cool. So don't go down the rabbit hole, friends. If you research what something's about and you're like, oh, I don't quite get it. And then you test it out and you're like, I probably shouldn't be doing that. Go back to safety. But I mean, hey, I did it for you. You learned from my mistakes. So keep doing the right thing, friends. So that's all the mischief I have for you today. I want to thank you for joining me for this tech video. The next video in the What is Tech series will be about encryption. Come learn all about it. Have a good day. And we want to thank you for watching. Follow us to find more videos just like this. Our page on Facebook is MCPL 360. We're here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you miss us on Facebook, you'll still find these same videos on our YouTube channel at MCPL Mo. Find our consumer technology playlist. Have a good day.